So imagine you are driving down this incredibly busy highway in a massive, like hugely complex vehicle. Let's call it the enterprise finance vehicle.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now, sitting right next to you in the passenger seat is the most brilliant, hyper-aware backseat driver you could possibly ever ask for.
Right.
I mean, they have real-time maps. They know exactly where all the traffic jams are. Uh, they can spot a pothole 3 miles away.
They can probably even draft a perfectly polite text message to your boss saying you're going to be 5 minutes late.
Exactly. They know absolutely everything happening inside and outside the car. But here's the catch. No matter what happens, no matter how fast you are careening toward a total roadblock, that brilliant passenger absolutely refuses to grab the steering wheel.
Yeah, they just won't do it.
They will only tell you about the problem. You still have to physically turn the wheel yourself.
That analogy perfectly captures where the corporate world has been stuck for, well, the last couple of years. Absolutely. The AI passenger knows the route perfectly. But without agency, without the mechanical ability to actually steer the vehicle, the burden of execution still falls entirely on your shoulders. It is a system built for observation, not intervention.
Welcome to today's deep dive. Today is Monday, April 6th, 2026, and we are so thrilled you are joining us.
It's great to be here. We have a lot to cover today.
We really do. We are looking at a stack of incredibly compelling material today, an insightful article and a companion blog post centered around a fundamental paradigm shift happening right now in enterprise AI.
It's a massive shift.
It is. We are talking about the leap from what the industry calls chain of thought to chain of action. Our mission today is to help you understand why the current era of AI co-pilots, that brilliant passenger we just talked about, is already obsolete for high-volume operations.
Totally obsolete.
And we're going to explore how a completely new organizational architecture is replacing it.
It really is a watershed moment for how businesses are structured. There is this specific concept we're exploring today from the sources that sets the stakes perfectly, I think.
Oh, let's hear it.
The quote is, "The chain of thought tells you what is wrong. The chain of action fixes it."
Wow.
Right. When you apply that to an enterprise processing millions of financial transactions globally, the distance between pointing out a problem and autonomously fixing it, that is where all the future value lives.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if you are working in finance, supply chain, or honestly any data-heavy industry right now, you are probably intimately familiar with this first wave of enterprise AI.
Oh, definitely.
It's the co-pilot era. It's the chain of thought. We have these massive systems that act as ultra-sophisticated advisors.
Right, the co-pilots.
Yeah, they read hundreds of spreadsheets in seconds. They draft your quarterly narrative reports. They spot anomalies in global tax data, or they flag a tiny discrepancy in a massive reconciliation process.
And honestly, it feels like magic compared to how we worked 5 years ago.
It really does.
The value of that inference capability is undeniable. I mean, the chain of thought model involves a sequence of reasoning steps. The AI ingests unstructured data, applies deep logic, and produces an incredibly synthesized output. But the critical limitation is that this output is entirely designed to be read, interpreted, and acted upon by a human being.
Right.
The AI has absolutely zero agency in the enterprise environment.
Yeah.
It identifies a tax anomaly, but person still has to log into the ERP system and correct it.
Right. The human bottleneck.
Exactly. It flags a reconciliation error, but an analyst has to resolve the ledger. It calculates the mathematically optimal window to pay an international vendor, but...
A human controller still has to physically click approve on the wire transfer.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings us to the fatal flaw of the co-pilot era. It creates a massive, crushing bottleneck. Let's do the math on this for a second. If you are in a global finance organization, you aren't dealing with 10 transactions a day. You are processing millions of them across dozens of jurisdictions. So let's say your brilliant AI co-pilot does its job perfectly and flags 10,000 minor tax anomalies in an hour.
Which it can easily do.
Right. But if a human analyst still has to manually review the context, open the software, and approve the fix for every single one of those anomalies, you haven't actually solved your capacity problem.
Not at all.
You've just created a massive traffic jam at the human level. At scale, this isn't really an AI solution. It is just a radically better informed manual process.
You nailed it. The human bottleneck remains the fundamental constraint on the entire system's throughput. A machine identifying 10,000 errors in a second is totally useless if the human workforce takes 3 months to clear the queue.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
This is the exact pressure point forcing the transition to Wave 2, which the source is called the chain of action.
Okay, wave 2.
In this architectural model, the AI is no longer just an advisor. It is an autonomous operator.
So it actually does the thing.
Exactly. It processes the information, makes a decision within strictly defined corporate parameters, and then it executes that action directly in the enterprise system, machine to machine,
Wow.
with zero human intervention.
But let me push back here for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If the AI we have right now is so incredibly smart, I mean, if it can write complex software code and analyze dense international tax law, why can't it just act?
Right.
Is this a limitation of the technology itself, or is it a limitation of our trust? Are we just, scared to let it drive the car?
It's a categorically different architectural philosophy. The chain of action isn't just a co-pilot that you suddenly handed a keyboard to.
Oh, it isn't.
No, it's built entirely differently from the ground up. Co-pilots are inherently built to generate language or generate insights for a human consumer. An agent is built to execute a function within a digital system.
Ah, I see.
When you are dealing with rule-based, high-volume, highly structured processes, which is, the vast bulk of financial operations, you don't need advice. You don't need a beautifully written summary.
You just need it done.
You need execution. There's another great line from the material. Co-pilots give better advice to the person who still has to act. Agents act.
Okay, so if the co-pilot isn't the thing executing the action, what is? What is the actual mechanism that takes the steering wheel here?
This introduces the concept of the Internet of Agents.
The Internet of Agents. Now that sounds a bit like a sci-fi buzzword, but this is the literal operating architecture that is replacing human execution right now, isn't it?
It is. And the Internet of Agents is crucial to visualize correctly. Do not picture a single monolithic AI brain sitting in a glowing server room somewhere running the whole company.
Like a supercomputer.
Right. It doesn't work like that. It is a highly distributed network of incredibly specialized AI agents. Each agent operates autonomously within its own specific, narrow domain.
Okay.
And they communicate with each other and with your core systems through standardized protocols, usually native APIs. They don't look at user interfaces like we do. They talk directly to the databases.
So instead of just listing off what these agents do, let's look at how they actually work together in practice.
Let's do it.
Let's imagine a concrete scenario. Suppose your company is executing a complex $50 million intercompany transfer from a subsidiary in Tokyo to the parent company in New York.
A very standard enterprise move.
Exactly. How does the Internet of Agents handle this without a human?
What's fascinating here is the sheer speed and orchestration of the handoffs. The moment that transfer is initiated in the system, it hits the first node, which is the transaction validation agent.
Okay, and what does that one do?
This agent doesn't just check if the fields are filled out. In milliseconds, it validates the data completeness against Japanese export regulations, applies the correct cross-border tax logic, and routes it forward.
Wait, milliseconds?
Milliseconds. If a minor correctable code is missing, it fixes it instantly.
Wow. And it doesn't start there. As soon as it's validated, the reconciliation agent picks it up.
Right.
So instead of a junior accountant spending their month end trying to manually match up spreadsheets across different time zones, this agent just runs continuously against the general ledger.
Exactly. It instantly matches the intercompany positions between the Tokyo and New York books, identifies any currency discrepancies, and automatically resolves them within your predefined tolerance levels.
Concurrently, your compliance monitoring agents are watching the pipeline too, right?
Oh, absolutely. These agents are tapped into global regulatory feeds.
Okay.
So if the SEC in the United States updated a reporting guideline regarding international transfers that very morning,
Yeah.
the agent assesses the impact on this specific $50 million transaction and dynamically flags the necessary reporting adjustments before the wire even clears.
That is wild. Meanwhile, you have cash flow optimization agents looking at the actual money.
Right, the treasury side.
They analyze your real-time global cash positions. They might look at the transaction and decide, based entirely on real-time forex rates and treasury policy, to delay the actual currency execution by 4 hours to capture a mathematically optimal exchange rate.
And they execute that delay entirely on their own.
Incredible.
And acting as the overarching security blanket, you have anomaly detection agents. They are constantly monitoring this entire stream.
So they're like the security guards.
Yes, but they aren't running batch reports at midnight. They're watching the live flow. They look for any behavioral patterns that deviate from established norms. If Tokyo doesn't normally send $50 million on a Tuesday, it catches it.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, audit evidence agents log every single machine decision, formatting the documentation so perfectly that an external auditor could pull the file 5 seconds later and see the exact defensible logic behind every single step.
It's an absolute symphony.
Yeah.
It's like moving from having one lone, brilliant accountant sitting at a desk with a calculator to building a fully automated, continuous 247 financial assembly line where all the parts just assemble themselves.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And it all happens in the blink of an eye. But I know what you're thinking as you listen to this. If this Internet of Agents is so incredibly efficient, why isn't every single Fortune 500 company operating this way right now?
Ah, yes.
And that brings us to the hidden catch. Autonomous action demands an absolutely flawless structural foundation. You cannot just buy an AI agent and drop it into a messy IT system.
Yeah, it really can't. This is where the architectural reality crashes into the AI hype. The absolute non-negotiable prerequisite for the chain of action is pristine data quality.
Pristine data.
Yes. Remember, agents operate at machine speed. They completely lack what we call human interpretive capacity.
Wait, hold on, I'm losing the thread here. I need to push back on this because it feels a bit contradictory.
Okay, how so?
Isn't the entire selling point of modern AI that it's incredible at making sense of messy, unstructured data? I mean, I can type a terrible typo-ridden prompt into ChatGPT with half the words misspelled, and it still perfectly understands what I want.
Right.
So why does a hyper-advanced AI agent suddenly get paralyzed by a typo on a vendor invoice?
Oh, I love this question. That is such a vital distinction to make. The difference between a language model guessing your intent and an autonomous agent executing a financial transaction is, well, it's the difference between writing fiction and performing surgery.
Oh, wow. Fiction versus surgery.
Exactly. If a language model writes a poem and guesses a word wrong, the stakes are zero. But if a human accountant sees a vendor name spelled Acme Corp on one invoice and Acme Corporation on another, the human uses interpretive capacity.
You just know it's the same company.
They understand the context. They know it's the same company. But an agent operating at machine speed, lacking that human contextual worldview, it will view them as two entirely distinct entities because it operates strictly on logic. It will either fail to reconcile the ledger, make a duplicate payment to the wrong account, or, at best, escalate the task back to a human, which entirely defeats the purpose of the automation.
Ah, I see. So messy data doesn't just slow the agent down, it basically turns it into a liability. A guessing AI is a dangerous AI when actual money is involved.
Exactly. In enterprise finance and compliance, every single automated action must be totally defensible to an auditor. You cannot sit in a boardroom and tell a regulator, well, the AI took a guess.
Yeah, that's not going to fly.
Defensibility requires perfect data. That is why building an agentic ecosystem requires what is fundamentally known as the triad of data infrastructure.
Okay, let's walk through that triad because this is the plumbing that makes the magic happen.
Let's do it.
The first piece is the canonical data model. Think of this as creating a universal translator for your entire company. If the sales team in London defines revenue one way and the manufacturing team in Mexico defines it another way, an agent will crash trying to reconcile them. So a canonical data model forces every single system in the company to speak one standardized, mathematically rigid language.
It creates a single version of the truth.
Right.
The second pillar of the triad is the data orchestration layer. If the canonical data model is the language, the orchestration layer is the nervous system.
Okay.
It's the highly complex routing hub that continuously extracts data from various software silos, validates it in real time, and routes it to the specific agents that need it exactly when they need it. It basically acts as the ultimate traffic cop.
And then the third pillar is a clean core ERP. This means your core enterprise resource planning software. Your central database cannot be bogged down with thousands of custom bespoke modifications that some rogue IT guy built back in 2014.
Oh, the nightmare of custom IT builds.
Right. It has to be standardized, cloud-based, and default to generating clean, machine-readable transaction data from the exact moment a process begins.
Without that triad, the canonical data model, the orchestration layer, and the clean core agents simply will not work. They will drown in ambiguity.
Yeah.
But there is another piece to this catch, which is governance infrastructure. And we need to be very clear here that governance is not a software product you just buy off a shelf.
Right. It's a capability.
Yes, it is a capability you build into the culture, and the architecture.
I love the way we can visualize governance. Think of it as the air traffic control tower for the Internet of Agents.
That's perfect.
If you have thousands of invisible agents taking actions in your financial systems at light speed, you need an air traffic controller ensuring they don't, crash into each other.
Exactly.
You need a framework that logs every single micro action for auditability. You need systems that define the strict parameters of what an agent is actually authorized to do.
Yes.
So if an agent suddenly tries to authorize a $500 million transfer instead of $60 million, the governance architecture is that hard wall that instantly stops the execution and alarms the humans.
If you don't have this governance capability, you get uncontrolled, dangerous automation. If you have the governance but lack the AI technology, you just get a bloated, underutilized human workforce. You must have both working in tandem.
So what does this all mean for the humans?
That is the big question.
That is the ultimate question for anyone listening to this deep dive right now. If we have this beautiful triad of data infrastructure and robust air traffic control governance, and machines are now autonomously executing all these incredibly complex processes with perfect data, what happens to you? What happens to the human workforce?
The human role is not eliminated. It is radically concentrated.
Concentrated.
Yes, you are no longer executing the mechanical steps of a process. You are elevating your focus entirely to decisions that require deep judgment, historical context, relationship understanding, and ethical reasoning.
The things machines can't do.
Exactly. These are the human elements that mathematically cannot be specified in advance as a rigid executable rule for an agent.
So if you are an analyst, a controller, or a supply chain manager listening to this right now, your day-to-day job is going to fundamentally transform.
Absolutely.
You are going to transition from executing manual workflows to governing a team of highly literal, incredibly fast AI agents. You cannot take this new architecture and just drop it into a standard corporate org chart. The job titles themselves are actually changing.
We are already seeing entirely new human roles emerging that organizations must design for.
Like what?
Well, first you have agent architects. These are the professionals who design the precise logic, the guardrails, and the parameters that the AI agents will follow.
Yeah.
They sit at the intersection of business strategy and machine logic, translating complex financial policy into clean, machine-executable rules.
Then you have performance managers, right?
Yes.
These are the folks acting like the coaches of the machine workforce. They monitor agent behavior, look for degradation in performance, and update the logic the second market dynamics or regulatory conditions change.
And critically, you have exception specialists.
Right.
Remember, the agents handle the vast majority of routine transactions. But when a scenario is genuinely ambiguous, heavily nuanced, or involves a really sensitive relationship with a major client, the agent hits its governance wall and kicks it up the chain.
It says, I don't know what to do here.
Exactly. The exception specialist is the human expert who handles the hardest, most complex edge cases that the machine simply does not have the context to resolve.
So how do you, as the listener, practically prepare for this shift today? You start by developing systems thinking. You stop looking at how to optimize a single spreadsheet, and you start looking at how data flows through your entire department.
Right.
You need to understand the logic of the business, the regulatory nuance, and the why behind the processes, because the machine is going to take over the how. It's a total upgrade of the human requirement.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
organizations that are currently spending all their IT budgets trying to train humans to write better prompts for their co-pilots are fighting the last war.
Yeah. Whew. Fighting the last war.
They are. The co-pilot era was just a rehearsal to get us used to AI. The agent era, the chain of action, is the actual performance.
No.
If you deploy autonomous agents into an organizational structure that is still designed for humans executing manual tasks, you will only create chaos. The technology choice is absolutely the chain of action, but the human organizational design has to be radically restructured to govern it.
Here's where it gets really interesting as we wrap this up. We are talking about successfully crossing the action gap, the vast distance between knowing a problem exists and automatically, systemically fixing it.
Yes.
The organizations that build this architecture first, that do the grueling, unglamorous work of cleaning their data, standardizing their models, setting up air traffic control governance, and redesigning their human roles, they are going to gain a massive structural competitive advantage.
Massive.
They will operate with a level of compliance precision and sheer speed that a manually intensive model simply cannot touch.
It is an undeniable exponential advantage. But this shift raises an important, really provocative question that I think we need to consider.
Okay, what is it?
We've established that the human workforce will be left to handle only the most complex, ambiguous exceptions, the edge cases requiring deep judgment and ethical reasoning.
Right.
But if the Internet of Agents is successfully handling all of the routine foundational work, how will the next generation of professionals ever get the entry-level reps required to develop that high-level judgment in the first place?
Oh.
If a junior analyst never has to do the basic grueling ledger reconciliations, how do they ever gain the intuitive, granular expertise needed to handle the complex exceptions when the machine gets confused 10 years from now?
Wow, that is the ultimate paradox of automation, isn't it? You desperately need that is an architectural challenge every single leader is going to have to solve as they redesign their teams. As we close out today's deep dive, I want you to look at your own daily tasks tomorrow. Think about that brilliantly paralyzed backseat driver. Look at your workflows and ask yourself honestly, am I currently acting as a chain of thought, just pointing out the traffic? Or am I building a chain of action and actually steering the wheel? Until next time, keep diving deep.